Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. For many years, the origin of indigenous peoples was a mystery that intrigued various researchers. However, with the advancement of genetic studies, we are now able to map the lineages and origins of these peoples in the Americas. But what about their DNA? In this video, I want to explore ancestral DNA and discuss which populations are deeply connected to indigenous peoples. So I invite you to like, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with others interested in learning more about the ancient DNA of indigenous peoples in the Americas. The mystery of the DNA of indigenous peoples of the Americas, Siberian and Chinese roots. Indigenous peoples are the pre-Columbian inhabitants of both American continents, before the arrival of European colonizers in the 15th century. The term also encompasses ethnic groups that maintain their identity with the pre-Columbian populations of the Americas. These populations exhibit an impressive cultural diversity. While some indigenous groups were traditionally hunters and gatherers, others engaged in agriculture and aquaculture. Many indigenous societies were responsible for developing highly complex social structures, which included everything from monumental architecture and well-organized cities to city-states, chiefdoms, kingdoms, republics, confederations, and large empires. Today, indigenous peoples continue to inhabit various regions of the Americas, forming significant communities in countries such as Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, the United States, and Brazil. When we talk about culture, it's possible to observe that cultural practices in the Americas were often shared within specific geographic zones. In these regions, distinct ethnic groups adopted similar cultural traits, technologies, and related forms of social organization. A striking example is Mesoamerica, where millennia of coexistence and joint development among the peoples of the region resulted in a relatively homogeneous culture, characterized by highly complex agricultural and social patterns. Another well-known example is the North American plains, where until the 19th century, various nomadic peoples shared a lifestyle based on hunting, especially bison, and common subsistence practices such as hunting and gathering. Regarding languages, the linguistic diversity among indigenous peoples is extremely rich. There is a great number of distinct languages and language families, which dispels the myth that all indigenous languages are similar to each other. In reality, there are significant differences between dialects, languages, and language families, revealing a complexity that is often ignored or underestimated. Now, let's get to the main point of this video: genetic research on indigenous peoples' DNA. The study of the genetic history of indigenous peoples of the Americas mainly focuses on analyzing Y-DNA, Y chromosome DNA, and mtDNA, mitochondrial DNA. Y-DNA is passed down exclusively through the paternal line from father to son, while mtDNA is inherited through the maternal line, passing from mother to all of her descendants, regardless of sex. Both types of DNA do not undergo genetic recombination, meaning that changes in Y-DNA and mtDNA occur only through random mutations over generations, without mixing between the genetic material of the parents. Additionally, autosomal markers, known as atDNA, are also used in studies. Unlike Y-DNA and mtDNA, atDNA overlaps considerably and is widely used to measure genetic admixture, allowing for the analysis of the average genetic ancestry across the entire human genome. This marker is particularly useful for understanding how isolated populations are related to each other in different regions of the Americas. Genetic analyses performed on mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, and Y chromosome DNA from indigenous populations in the Americas, compared with those from certain peoples in Siberia and Central Asia, especially Paleo-Siberians and Turks, have revealed a significant genetic connection. These studies indicated that populations in the region between the Altai Mountains and Lake Baikal are genetically closest to the indigenous peoples of the Americas. This area spans territories in both Siberia and Mongolia, recognized as one of the central points for shared genetic origins. Furthermore, Other scientific evidence strengthens the genetic link between Native Americans and peoples of Northern Asia, such as the Ket, Chukchi, and Koryak, indigenous groups of Siberia. Molecular studies and genetic analyses show similarities not only in genetic composition, but also in the distribution of blood types. For instance, Asian haplogroups A, B, C, and D, commonly found in the mitochondrial DNA of East Asian populations, such as the Chinese, are also widespread among Native Americans. This genetic overlap supports the theory of an ancient migration across the Bering Land Bridge as one of the main routes connecting the continents. Additionally, specific subclades of haplogroups C and D found in some Native American populations who participated in DNA testing showed significant similarities with subclades present in Mongols, Japanese, Koreans, and the Ainu people. The available genetic patterns have led researchers to propose two main theories regarding the genetic events that shaped the indigenous peoples of the Americas. The first episode is the initial settlement of the American continent, which is widely considered the determining factor for genetic diversity, mutations, founder haplotypes, and the genetic lineages that characterize present-day indigenous populations. The most widely accepted theory among anthropologists to explain this settlement is the Bering Strait theory. The second episode is the European colonization of the Americas, which had a genetic impact on indigenous populations. Human colonization of the Americas, or the New World, occurred gradually, initially from the coast of the Bering Sea. Studies on the diversity and distribution of microsatellites from specific lineages, particularly in South America, suggest that certain indigenous populations have remained isolated since the time of initial colonization of the region. The Na-Dene populations, including the indigenous peoples of Alaska, exhibit mutations in haplogroup Q of Y-DNA. However, these populations are distinct from other indigenous groups in the Americas due to various specific mutations in mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, and autosomal DNA, atDNA. These data suggest that the earliest migrants to the northern regions of North America and Greenland came from later migration waves. Recent discoveries from autosomal DNA analyses and complete genomes have provided additional insights into the formation of settlements and the external connections of indigenous peoples in the Americas with other populations. Studies show that Native Americans share a very close genetic relationship with the Paleo-Siberian tribes of Siberia, with ancient samples from the Malta-Buret culture, northern Eurasian populations, and also with ancient Beringians. Native Americans share a significant genetic affinity with East Asian peoples, including Chinese populations. A considerable portion of their genetic makeup is primarily derived from southern Chinese groups. The genetic ancestry of Native Americans is occasionally referred to as Amerindian, which largely overlaps with Paleo-Siberian ancestry. However, it differs from Neo-Siberian ancestry, which is associated with historical expansions in northeastern Asia and is currently predominant among Siberian populations. The ancestors of Native American peoples followed a single migratory route, likely through Beringia, and subsequently spread throughout the continent, reaching various regions of the Americas. The time frame for this process is still a subject of debate among scholars. On the other hand, there is evidence of possible contacts between Native Americans and Polynesians dating back around 1,400 years. Recent genetic studies have shown that paleo-indigenous groups, previously hypothesized to be distinct, are genetically identical to modern Native Americans. The controversial theory that the first inhabitants of the Americas came from Europe via the North Atlantic, based on similarities between Solutrean stone tools, Upper Paleolithic Europe, and Clovis culture tools, North America, has been refuted. The analysis of the genome of the Anzic child, associated with Clovis culture, revealed that it belongs directly to the ancestral lineage of Native Americans, with no genetic relation to Upper Paleolithic European populations. The dating of the formation of the genetic pool of Native American peoples varies among researchers, with differing interpretations spanning several millennia. During the process of colonization of the American continent, Native Americans emerged from the mixture of a lineage that diverged from the peoples of ancient East Asia. This group included populations from regions like China, Korea, and other East Asian countries. Scholars disagree on the timing of when migratory populations moved from southern present-day China to northern Siberia. In this region, these populations merged, or intermingled, with a Paleolithic Siberian group known as the ancient Northern Eurasians, who have a deep connection with European hunter-gatherers. This interaction gave rise to the indigenous peoples of Siberia and later Native Americans, or Amerindians. In percentage terms, genetic analyses indicate that Native Americans have approximately 32% to 44% of their ancestry derived from the Amur River hunter-gatherers, a genetic group also common among Koreans and Siberians. This proportion corresponds to the ancient Siberian native ancestry of Native Americans. The second genetic component of Native Americans, which complements the rest of their composition, is derived from East Asian populations, especially from southern China. This genetic contribution, which ranges from 56% to 68%, is associated with the Neolithic farmers of the Yellow River and Neolithic Southeast Asian farmers. Interestingly, the ancestry of Southeast Asian Neolithic farmers is related to Austroasiatic peoples who show notable genetic similarities with Native American populations. These are the main genetic components that make up the DNA of the indigenous populations that inhabit both South and North America. Take the opportunity to write in the comments if you would like me to bring more content about the genetics of different populations, including mysterious peoples that many people still know little about. Also, tell me what you thought of the video. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.